My name is Jill Coyle, and welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce, where we talk the nitty-gritty aspects of divorce and help each other come through this not only surviving, but thriving. I'm a divorce attorney, and I'm interviewing other experts and people just like you who are going through or have been through a divorce, so you can have the latest and greatest information on all things before, during, and after divorce. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Today we are talking about the divorce diet and how to avoid turning to food to cope. And my guest, I am absolutely thrilled that you joined us, Dr. Susan Thompson. This is just amazing because I have now read about you and I thought, wow, not only is this going to help my clientele or the people listening on my podcast, but this is going to help me. I have been very, very forthcoming and honest with just like people that know me and my viewership about my issues with using food as a coping mechanism in my life. And you are here to help us through that and to kind of discuss how we can maybe avoid that and take back our ability to take control of our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. So welcome to the show, Dr. Thompson. I'm just so grateful you're here.
Thanks, Jill. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I am going to just introduce you to our viewers so that they can kind of know who you are. So she is a Ph.D. She's an adjunct associate professor of brain and cognitive sciences at the University of Rochester and an expert in the psychology of eating. She is president of the Institute for Sustainable Weight Loss and the founder of the worldwide Bright Line Eating movement. Her first two books include Bright Line Eating, The Science of Living Happy, Thin, and Free, became New York Times bestsellers and instant Hay House favorites. Her work weaves the neuroscience of food addiction with powerful insights from positive psychology, IFS, and 12-step recovery to outline a roadmap for achieving true integrity and self-authorship around food. The Bright Line Eating mission is to help 1 million people around the globe discover lasting food freedom and have their bright transformations by 2025. Wow.
Yep, that's the bio.
That's amazing, Dr. Thompson. So tell me, I read your story on your website, and so I want my viewers to hear a little bit more about your story, about how you got into this field and what brought you to this passion and such this amazing goal of what we just said about helping 1 million people around the globe.
So I got into this field because of my own issues. I mean, I think that's a lot of how people often wind up with a career that's more of a calling. I have a long history of addiction. I just struggle with addiction. I have a very addictable brain is what I like to say.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a hugely overweight kid at all, but I was chunky. And by the time I was 11, I weighed more than I weigh now. And when I got into high school, I started to be very concerned about my weight. And I did something maybe unconventional. I started turning to drugs. I was exploring with drugs, experimenting, but I was also noticing that they helped me not eat so much and lose some weight. So my drug use escalated from drugs to harder drugs to harder drugs. And before I knew it, it was crystal meth and then cocaine and then freebasing cocaine and then crack cocaine. I dropped out of high school. I became a prostitute, and I did get clean and sober when I was 20, and super grateful for that. It's a big miracle. So I haven't had a drink or a drug in 27 years. But my addiction hopscotched right over to food. And in short order, I was obese by my mid-20s and struggled to figure out how to get over my food addiction the way I had gotten over my drug addiction. But it was harder. And I write about that in my third book called Resume. I talk about how food is the hardest addiction to beat. And I say that, as someone who's been addicted to crack cocaine, not just a little addicted, like living in a crack house, out to prostitute, back into the crack house, addicted to crack cocaine, and food is harder. And so anyway, I did finally lose my excess weight when I was 28. And so I've been in my bright body now, 18 years or something like that. So I'm 47 now. And I've been a size 4 now for all these years. And so I teach people how to have that transformation. And also I ended up going back to school and getting that Ph.D. in brain and cognitive sciences and spending, I guess, about 16 years as a psychology professor. And I taught a college course on the psychology of eating for a long time and the neuroscience of food addiction. And so I just like to teach people how their brain blocks them from having authorship over what they're eating. And there really are tricks that are going on in our brain that explain how we can be so committed one moment to like, I am going to get this weight off. I'm serious this time. And then just a short time later, be ordering, pizza and wings and nachos with friends on a Friday night and going, what just happened?
Yeah.
I was so earnest. So yeah, that's what I teach people, is how that happens and why that happens and how to long-term beat that game, because it's an issue of execution over the long term. Everyone knows that they should be eating blueberries and not nachos. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But how do you execute that over the long term? That's what I teach people to do.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're going to talk about it because I need you to teach me. Because one of the things that I have known through my life is, I don't have great genes. I know that that's half the battle, but I also know that a lot of it is exactly what you said. Like, I can get so motivated and I can do what's necessary to lose weight and I know what I need to put in my body. But then I get to those places where I'm just like, screw it. And I think what's interesting, and I want to hear your perspective of this, is I don't do crack cocaine. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't drink coffee. Most of some of the things that we could consider addictive, I don't do. So food to me is like one of those things where I'm like, well, it's not necessarily that thing that's been told that it's bad. And so I don't look at it like that. I tell my kids, don't do drugs. It's bad for you. It causes cancer. But we don't teach our kids that we need to be staying away from certain amounts of food. And, this is my battle. I like, if everybody wants me to get raw and real on this podcast, like, this is my battle. I have struggled with this my entire life, with understanding why I can't just get to a weight and I can be there. And I can feel good about myself, and why I let myself sabotage. So talk about that. Like, why is...
So can I just pause you real quick? Because you just said something that I want to zoom in on real quick. Okay. You do not do drugs. You are super identity defined as someone who doesn't do drugs, who doesn't drink, who's never done drugs, isn't going to do drugs, right? Right? Correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So let's zero in there, Jill. What is a drug? What makes something a drug, right? Let's talk about two drugs that no one's confused about, right? Let's talk about heroin and cocaine. Where do they come from? What makes them drugs? Where does cocaine come from? Do you know? Cocaine,
crack made?
No, cocaine. So cocaine is a drug that comes from a plant. Do you know what plant?
No.
So it comes from the coca leaf. Oh. So there are these bushes in the Andes Mountains that have these leaves, and hikers in the Andes Mountains pluck the leaves and put them in their cheek and sort of chew on them.
Okay.
And it causes a little lift. It causes the cheek to get a little numb, maybe like half a cup of caffeinated tea or something, right? Nobody's becoming addicted to this. As a matter of fact, there's a published scientific paper that shows that chewing on coca leaves is not addictive. So the coca leaves are not a drug. But when you take the inner essence of those coca leaves and you extract it, and then you refine and purify it down into a fine white powder, you've turned a harmless plant into a drug. You've made a drug, right? Okay. So where does heroin come from?
Again, made? I don't know.
It's made from a plant. Mm-hmm. It comes from the poppy plant.
Okay.
Poppy plant. And you could eat a bunch of poppy seed bagels and actually fail a drug test.
Right. Right.
You got to be
Didn't
careful
know that.
about
Didn't know that. Okay.
right. Okay. But nobody is becoming, a fanatic poppy seed bagel addict, right?
Right.
It's only addictive when you take the inner essence of that poppy plant and you extract it, and then you refine and purify it down into a fine light brown powder or a sludgy liquid. Either one of those will work. That's heroin, that's opium. Okay. So now you've taken a harmless plant and you've turned it into a drug. So what's sugar?
It's the exact same thing.
It's the exact same thing, right? It could come from beet or corn or sugar cane or rice or, right? All of those things are used to make sugar. And I eat all of those things in my diet. I eat beets. I mean, I don't know about sugar cane, I guess, whatever, but not sold in my grocery store.
You're not gnawing on it yet.
I'm not gnawing on them. But it's only problematic when you extract the inner essence and then you refine and purify it down into a drug. That's the problem, right? It's not the corn. It's the corn syrup, right? So, and what's flour?
Same again, thing. Broken down, bleached.
Yeah, I eat wheat. I eat almonds. I eat rice. I eat potatoes. I eat all whole real foods. But when you take the inner essence of any of those foods, so it doesn't matter what the original source is, whether it's coconut or almond, or I don't eat flour. I do not eat anything where they've extracted the inner essence of this plant and then refined and purified it down into a fine powder. Digestively, it's like the equivalent of when you eat flour or sugar. And those are the drugs that I avoid, flour and sugar. Digestively, it's like the equivalent of, if you eat a bowl of brown rice, okay, that's the equivalent of taking big blocks of ice and putting them out on your blacktop driveway in the summertime. They'll melt, but it'll take hours, okay? But eating brown rice flour or brown rice syrup, that's sugar or flour, right, is the equivalent of taking snow cone shavings and sprinkling them onto your blacktop driveway on a hot summer day. They're going to melt on contact. So when you eat those substances, they trigger right into your system. I mean, really, a lot of the damage is done by the time it hits your tongue. The tongue has direct connections to the addictive centers in the brain, the addiction centers in the nucleus accumbens, the ventral tegmental area, direct connections right in there. And you're sunk before you've even swallowed. But then the digestive system creates another double whammy where it messes up your glucose and insulin responses and so forth. So I don't eat sugar and I don't eat flour the same way you don't smoke cigarettes and you don't drink caffeine and you don't drink alcohol.
Yeah. And so if you step back, I mean, is our problem, especially in America, I mean, like we're eating and addicting ourselves to processed.
That's right.
Everything.
That's right. And there's a lot of research showing that our weight problem is the result of eating processed foods. And shockingly, frighteningly, a new study came out showing that 2/3 of the calories that children and adolescents are consuming are classified as ultra processed foods, meaning they began and ended as chemicals in a laboratory made out of processed ingredients like sugar and flour. Yeah. So,
and this, okay. So, but I want to back up a little bit and I want to push you a little bit on this because I get where we're going and I get where the problem is. But let's talk about that mom who is now forced into going back to the workforce because she's in the middle of a divorce. She doesn't have time to get up and, make her kids lunch. So they're eating whatever the school's producing and she can't cook dinner because or she's just trying to keep her head above water.
Yeah.
These are the things that people are dealing with when they're going through a struggle, especially a divorce. So I want to kind of push you a little bit then to say, what can we be doing to meet this and understand this, but still survive?
Yeah, totally. I get that. And I have 3 children and 33 employees and life is busy. I so get it. And so what I would say about that is we all have automated our eating to a large extent. We're all kind of running on autopilot. And as we eat, we're just acting out sort of prescripted routines of like how we have learned to procure calories. Right.
Right.
And doing bright line eating, which is sort of the method that works to solve this juggernaut of the food issue. Doing bright line eating I won't lie, it absolutely does take an upfront commitment to break a whole bunch of habitual patterns. And for many of us, an addiction, right?
Yeah.
And reestablish a bunch of other habitual patterns. That takes 3 to 4 months, if done well. If you're really, really focused and committed, you get most of the benefit within a week or 2 or 3. Like it happens pretty fast. If you just follow the plan, you dot your I's, you cross your T's, but it is going to take a few months to retrain the brain. But once the brain has been retrained, and if you've really been faithful, automaticity kicks in and you get all the benefit of running on autopilot in the new system, and your weight is handled, you're eating healthfully. And it really, the whole like, I'm a mom going a million miles an hour. It's not an issue anymore because there are so many ways to do it on the quick and easy. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just give you an example. You need a protein serving for every meal. Well, there's so many easy ones, right? Like those string cheese sticks that they sell in the big things where you just like pack it. 2 of those as a protein, grab them. You know what I mean? Like I can assemble lunch in 42 seconds flat, like so fast.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of learning a new system.
And how do because so many of us just want to, me included, just want to make the excuse of it's too much work. Like how do I get past that? Because that's, I know for a fact, like I've done every diet in the world, literally. And I've tried so many different ways. And at the end of the day, if I know what I'm going to eat, if I planned it, any diet will work for me.
That's right.
Because it's the ones where I don't know what I'm going to eat. I don't know what I'm going to cook for my kids for dinner, where I fall into I might as well just make you another box of macaroni and cheese. And, and so how do you change that mindset of it only takes a few minutes for you to plan out what you need?
Yeah. Well, the bright line eating system is built on that foundation, Jill, and you're exactly right. When you've planned out your food the night before or in advance, you've already almost won the battle. Yeah. Like that's it right there. And bright line eating, goes by that. That's the drill is you write down your food the night before, you commit it. And then the next day you eat only in exactly that. That's the rule. Wash, rinse, repeat. And once you've done that for a few weeks, it is so easy, right? Like right at the end of dinner is the cue as you're sort of cleaning things up to just open your little book, write in what you're going to eat, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's really just based on sort of plug and play categories. So you might be thinking, well, what fruit do I want for lunch tomorrow? I'm going to grab one of those oranges, but it's going to take you just a few seconds to do that. Cause it's just, you have a few sort of routines that you're in. And, like I said, you've sort of picked your fruit at the grocery store whenever you went shopping. So you already know what you have. It's so easy. And so really it's hard thing. Again, there's some upfront investment to figuring out the system, but the brilliant thing, Jill, is that that's when you're motivated, right? When you're starting, right? Like that's when you're like, finally, I found a plan that works. I'm going to lose this weight. You've got a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of good juice in your tank when you start a plan that you have a lot of hope in, especially when you get on the Bright Line Eating website or, you're in the Bright Line Eating official Facebook group and you see all of the pictures of the hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of people who've succeeded. They're keeping off massive amounts of weight. And you're like, okay, I'm doing this. This is going to work.
Right.
And then it becomes automatic. Don't underestimate automaticity, right? Like you don't have to be in the mood to make sure you have pants on when you leave the house.
Right. You just do it.
Like you just do it. You're not leaving the house without being clothed. Right? And it's the same as this plan. Once it's automatic, you're home free.
Yeah. And that's the thing with divorce. Like when people start going through the divorce, they get motivated to start taking care of their mental, their emotional, and their physical health. And we laugh because we call it the divorce diet, where my clients end up looking better than that I remember, and they look so good and they're so motivated. So the psychology behind like getting to that place of motivation and then finding somebody like you that says, but I can have this plan of action to actually get you. How important is that?
It's the most important thing. Having a good roadmap is the most important thing. It's sort of like this. The stats on long-term weight loss maintenance are abysmal.
Yeah.
Just like you said, any plan will work, and any plan does work for people for the first 2, 3, 4 months.
Yep.
Any plan. I don't care what plan. I don't care. Whatever. Grapefruit diet, whatever. Any plan works at first. And then what happens is within a year or two, 70 to 95% of those pounds are regained. All right. Almost all of them. In Bright Line Eating, and we published this article last year in the Journal of Nutrition and Weight Loss, 2 years after starting Bright Line Eating, in a group of thousands of people, none of the pounds were regained 2 years later. As a matter of fact, as a group, they had lost twice as much as they had in those initial 2 months, which was more weight than I've ever seen anyone lose in any trial ever. So 2 years out now as a group, I'm not saying that there wasn't a single person in the group that didn't regain weight. There were. What I'm saying is for every person who regained any weight, someone else lost doubly more.
Weight. Yeah.
Right?
So,
astounding results. Yeah. So you need a roadmap that works and that works long-term, not just initially.
So tell me the difference. Why does yours work? Share your
one
secret.
Is that we take food addiction seriously. Mm-hmm. Find another plan for me that takes food addiction seriously, a commercial plan. There are a few 12-step programs that take food addiction seriously. But other than that, I don't know of any plans that take it seriously.
I don't think so either. I honestly think that dieting is the biggest gimmick in the world.
Totally.
And I'm the first person to buy it. I mean, January is the worst month for me to be on social media because I'm flipping through and there's ad after ad after ad about pay me and I can help you lose weight. And I get it. I mean, I'm sure you're not free because you have to make money for what you're doing. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting back the reasons why every January I have to start this journey forward. So I'm kind of interested, like, what's your secret? Why is your plan the way that people can say, I can do this, not just for today, but I can do it for a long time, forever, for life?
Yeah. I can mention several factors that are completely different than all those other plans that you've tried for January 1st. One is we take food addiction seriously, right? We're not offering 1-point brownies. You won't find those in Bright Line Eating, right? Seriously. That is, I don't know of any other plan that takes a serious, look. It's addictive. And there are a lot of people. It's about maybe half the population that can have a cookie and stop. And for other people, scratching the itch just makes it itchier. And it's not ever going to work out in your favor when you try the one piece of pizza experiment, right? Like it's just, you're going to end up having a second piece. So all of us who are in that camp of like, we know the kind of person, the kind of eater that we are, it's actually freeing. Just like you probably don't feel deprived going through life not drinking coffee. Do you feel deprived going through life drinking coffee? Are you like sweating about that all the time and feeling so hard done by and miserable?
No. I mean, it's not my thing. I don't like the taste of coffee, so it makes it easy for me to just say I don't want coffee. It's just that is, but if it comes to a chocolate cake, Here's
the thing. It's just like quitting smoking, which you probably have never done, but I have. Yeah. And reality is, you miss it at first for sure. And then after a while, I'm a non-smoker now, not just for weeks or months, but for years. And I never think about it. Yeah. I never think about it. And that it's the same with that. The no thank you becomes really routine. Okay. So number one, we take addiction seriously. That's different. Number two is we know that the solution is automaticity. You're never going to win if it's a choice and it's about willpower, because the part of the brain that governs willpower, that helps you execute a decision based on willpower, is fickle in the extreme. It doesn't show up for you regularly. So that's the, oh, what the heck, I'm eating pizza tonight thing, right? The only way around that is automaticity. You probably 95% chance, Jill, that you're one of the people who brushes her teeth morning and night. Are you one of those people? You brush your teeth morning and night?
Yes.
Doesn't matter if you're sick, doesn't matter if you're traveling, doesn't matter if you're in a good mood or bad mood, correct?
Correct.
You don't need a sticky note on your mirror to remind you?
Nope.
That's automaticity.
Right.
It's a whole different part of the brain. It doesn't matter that you're in the mood. It doesn't matter you were up late at a New Year's Eve party. It doesn't matter. You're brushing your teeth before you go to bed. In bright line eating, that's the part of the brain that I know how to tap into. I teach you how to execute breakfast, lunch, and dinner from that part of the brain. And so it doesn't matter that you're not in the mood to eat what you're eating for dinner. It doesn't come into play. It doesn't matter. That's what you're eating for dinner. And it's not because you're virtuous. It's because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
So I know how to tap into that part of the brain. Other plans don't. They're doing things like meals and snacks and having you, count points or whatever they're having you do. But it isn't automaticity. It's willpower that they're expecting you to be motivated and to have enough willpower on board to execute it. That's flawed. It will never work. It will never work. Imagine, Jill, as successful as you are with brushing your teeth, do you think you could do it 6 times a day if that's what was now required with the kind of fidelity that you do twice a day?
I mean, I could, yeah.
You think?
I wouldn't. I mean, with how busy I am, probably no.
Yeah. I think if we launched a dental global brush your teeth 6 times a day movement, I think teeth brushing effectiveness would fall off a cliff.
Yes.
Right? Because you're not going to have the equipment with you. You're not going to remember. Your day is going by. What makes teeth brushing so successful from an automaticity standpoint is it's wired in at a specific time of day, triggered by reliable cues, both temporal and locational cues that trigger you to do it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are like that. Add in snacks and the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you can wire breakfast into your breakfast routine, dinner into your end of day routine, and lunch into that precious midday pause that we still have in our society. Anything else isn't going to work.
Yeah. Well, because I look at my husband and the way that he views food is he needs food for fuel. So he eats when he needs fuel, Right. And if he doesn't need fuel or he doesn't need that, whatever, he doesn't need the food. But I look at the way I think of food and I'm like thinking, well, I need food because it's dinner.
Yeah.
It's two total different mindsets. And my husband is never going to have a weight problem because of it. So how do I change my mindset of what food is actually needed for when, we are fooled in America with just the fact that they spend billions of dollars on TV to show me that I need food.
Totally. Entertainment, for consolation, for comfort, for celebration, for all the things. And I still use food for celebration. I mean, when someone in the Thompson household has a big, thing, we go out to dinner, and I enjoy my dinner. And yeah, my dinner is a little sexier when I go out to eat because they put oil on the vegetables and it's all, if I eat out, 3 meals a day for 2 weeks, I put on 3 or 4 pounds. When I get home and get back to my own kitchen, they come off within a week. It's like, it's routine, right? The good thing is with bright line eating, Jill, you don't have to worry about your motivations for eating or not eating. All that eating is based on the system that you used to use, and it's irrelevant. When you start doing bright line eating, it all just falls into place. You really just don't have to worry about that. What's going to happen is you're going to develop an identity as a bright lifer, as someone who does bright line eating, right? You just act like you have an identity of someone who doesn't do drugs.
Right.
So it's just, yeah.
So so for our listeners, like what is the psychology behind about taking the power of your own physical well-being into play? Like,
yeah. Well, so let me there's a certain kind of person that this is so important for, right? And I know that this is a podcast about divorce. And so I couldn't agree with you more. My husband and I separated in 2006 for like 9 months. we're back together now, but he got a lease on another apartment. He moved out, he left me, and we didn't even have tea, coffee or whatever for 9 months. And I got more fit in those 9 months. I was 32. We didn't have kids yet. I was like, okay, I'm going to be looking for another mate. I already know that I'm infertile. We were doing fertility treatments when he left me. So I already know that like I have an uphill battle to ever have a child, right? I knew I wanted children. So, absolutely. I hit the gym and was in the apartment by myself. And I got into this incredible routine. I already back then followed the way of eating that I eat now, but the psychology of this it's just so empowering, especially for the person like you or like me, who's tried everything and can't seem to like get this puzzle piece to fall into place, right? Because it's so demoralizing. Like before I solved my food problem, I had run a marathon. I had gotten my Ph.D. in brain and cognitive sciences in one of the top 3 schools in the world, right? I had gotten 4.0s at UC Berkeley and spoke at the graduation at the UC Berkeley graduation the year that I graduated. Like I could do so many things. I'd gotten married. I had whatever. I had this great life, but I couldn't stick to a food plan long enough to lose my excess weight and keep it off. I couldn't do it. I would start a plan that seemed so sensible and seemed like it would work. And it would work for a while. And then there was some sort of fuzzy headed time warp and I was back being as heavy as ever. And I couldn't figure out what the difference was, Oh, by the way, I'd also quit doing drugs, right? Not many people get out of the crack house, right?
So tough.
So it's just incredibly empowering. And what's interesting, we have data, we're very data driven at Brightline Eating. We have data showing that within the first 2 months of doing Brightline Eating, almost everybody becomes very confident that they're going to reach their goals with Brightline Eating. There's something about it that feels very different. You start to go, oh, this was the answer that I was missing. This is easy. And what I find is that the biggest thing for people is just not to let how easy it is make them really complacent, because it's not hard. It's freeing. When you quit something and you just quit it definitively, it's freeing. Yes, you miss it at first, but the like, I don't eat that anymore just becomes so clear and dominant. And you're in this whole big, beautiful community of people who see you and get you and love you and are there for you. And we all eat this way. It's not weird in Brightline Eating. We're doing it together. Yeah. So it's very empowering. And for anyone out there who is it's actually 1/3 of people who are highly susceptible to food addiction. I said half before, but that's half is like, on the susceptibility scale, you took the quiz, right? It's like a scale from 1 to 10. I'm a 10. God bless me. I'm a 10. Yeah. What do you want to share your number with folks?
I was a 7. I was a 7 on the quiz.
Yeah, totally. And your husband is probably a 2.
Yeah.
Or a 1 or a 2 or a 3. My husband's a 3. And yeah, it's so empowering to finally just feel seen and understood by a food plan. Brightline Eating is never going to sell you fake foods. I'm going to tell you to go to the store and buy food, real food. There's no whole real food that we don't eat. I'm not going to ask you to, get wackadoodle with shifting macronutrients around or anything like that. There's nothing in particular to track. We just keep track of food in terms of vegetable, fruit, fat, protein categories you already know. Right. And you can eat all of them. Right. So it's like, it's so easy. And it works. You start doing it and your weight starts to melt off, even if you have Hashimoto's, which I do.
Oh, wow. It's so interesting too, because especially for my listeners who are possibly, going through some of this really hard times where they feel like they've lost all control. Gaining control over this is something that's actually doable. And I think that can be actually very, very freeing and very motivating for you when you feel like your whole world's kind of going apart for you to say, you know what, I'm going to take charge of this because I can. My husband and I joke about the fact that I struggle with my weight because I control everything else around me. Yeah. And this is the one thing that I can like almost self-sabotage myself and say, I don't want to control. But I think that that's just my excuse I give me to I guess allow myself to continue to comfort the way I comfort. I want to get to the point where I don't need food to feel that little bit of joy or whatever it gives me. I control everything else in my life. I have immense joy. Me and you, our stories line a little bit in the fact that my husband left me at year 4. And we were separated, and so we didn't divorce either. That's all in my book, and I've shared that with my listeners. So we have that in common. But I do know that at least with my journey and what other people are going through, sometimes I just feel like maybe this is my sabotage. I'm controlling everything else. So right now I just want to say I don't want to control this, and it tears me apart. Because I'm here in front of, all of my listeners. I'm on Instagram. I'm portraying myself as this strong, amazing woman who can do anything. And I can do that. I mean, I have 30 employees too. I run 5 companies. I, am a multimillionaire before I'm 40. Like, I have done some pretty cool things. But yeah, I can't sit myself in the mirror and say, you have control of this. Teach me, Dr. Thompson, what's wrong with me? Because I hear what you're saying, and I think that's exactly right. Like, yeah. I just need to take control of this because I can, and I should, and I want to. So why aren't I? And I think that's the psychology breakdown that I
do have an answer for you. Can I share with you what's been going on in your brain that's
Sure.
caused it?
I think so. I want that.
So here's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that, like an amazing woman, Oprah or whomever, right? You have a long, long list of successful accomplishments and incredible feats behind you. And you're noticing that you have not conquered the food and weight thing. And you're concluding that this might be the one area in your life where you're sabotaging yourself. Like this, for whatever reason, this is your Achilles heel. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what's happening, Jill, is that your brain has been hijacked, and I'll explain how in a second. And you could no more have solved it yourself than you could have convinced yourself to hold your breath while running up 15 flights of stairs. You can't override certain systems in the brain.
Yeah.
You just can't. The brain won't let you. Okay.
Okay.
But because our eating behavior appears voluntary, and there's actually a voice in our head that makes it seem voluntary. There's a voice in our head that says, oh, screw it. I'll just eat the pizza, wings, nachos tonight, right?
Yep.
And so therefore you conclude that you've decided to do that, right? You're watching your track record and concluding, I must have some deep psychological issue or some part of me that's sabotaging me, because it's the only way to explain this repeated failure in this area, right? If there were another good explanation, you'd probably latch on it, because you don't actually believe that you don't want to get thin and solve your food issue. You don't actually believe that. You want to get thin and solve your food issue very much, correct?
Preach. Yes, correct.
Yeah. But in the absence of any other explanation, you've defaulted to this, I must be sabotaging myself conclusion. But that's not actually what's happening. Your brain has been hijacked. And as soon as you have an effective roadmap, it's all going to fall into place.
I agree with you. Because what you were saying is, in my mind, I think I don't fail at anything, which is why when I choose to go on a diet, I am very successful and I can lose that weight. But it's just like that. But then I get into this routine of just, I'm the kind of person, just like you said, that probably can't ever have a cookie. Because when I have one cookie, it lets me have another cookie the next night. And then it just goes down this situation. And I'm being super vulnerable and open to my listeners here about something that has really been an insecurity of mine my entire life. And, I wanted to talk about this on the show because I want people to recognize that I am what I am. Like, I am nothing more than that. Like, I have lots of imperfections, and I'm not here just talking to you about what you should do without me turning around and looking at myself and thinking, wow, I should be doing this as well. So having you on the show and really opening up about this is just, I think, been very, very just helpful because so many times in our life, we hijacked ourselves from being the best version of ourselves because of our excuses that we just continually put in front of ourselves. And I tell everybody, I tell my listeners every day, stop using your excuses to build these brick walls, because those are going to be the brick walls that keep you from being your authentic, true self. And you are worthy of happiness. And so I'm like sitting here thinking, I tell people that every day, Dr. Thompson, I need to turn around and tell myself that stop using these bricks to make these excuses from me being my authentic, true self that I know I can be and I am deserving of. And no chocolate cake, no chocolate chip cookie is going to turn around and make me feel the way I do when I know I'm being healthy, when I know that I feel good about myself. And I want my listeners to hear this as well. It's not a weight thing for me. It's me knowing that I'm doing the things to make my body feel good and to be strong. And I'm committed. I think that you have just said a lot of just amazing things. And what you're doing about tackling the addiction of food is so important, because I absolutely agree with you. The diet industry does not want to tackle that because they know that if they tackle that, you will stop coming back and buying their product.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So you being something so different and bringing this, and you just diving into the Ph.D. and learning more about this. I love how you said you're statistically driven in what you do. Just shows that you are proving what you're doing. You're not just saying it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're living proof, because you utilize it in your life, and you've been able to keep the weight off for now, what did you say, 18 years?
Yeah, since 2004. Yeah, since early 2000, mid 2004, coming up on 18 years. Yeah, I started this in 2003. Do you want me to share just in broad brushstrokes how your brain has been blocking you from losing weight, like how it's been hijacked?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. So 3 key ways. I already touched on the first one, which is that willpower gap, right? It's the anterior cingulate cortex that's trying to execute your willpower, and it gets easily fatigued. Like after 15 minutes of decision-making or resisting temptations or emotional regulation, it's completely fatigued. So that means like 15 minutes checking email and it's fatigued. So at the end of a long week, and forget about someone going through a divorce and having to regulate their emotions around the nastiness of that process, right? So you'd be in a near constant state of willpower fatigue. So the only solution to that is automaticity. And the Bright Line Eating Plan is set up to automate your eating. And that covers it. Just like you're probably brushing your teeth through your divorce, it covers it. The second way that your brain is blocking you from losing weight is the addiction piece itself, which is caused by dopamine downregulation in the nucleus accumbens. So basically what that means is you're eating sugar and flour, or, first cousin foods like potato chips or something like that. And it's causing a flood, like an unnatural excessive release of dopamine in the addiction centers of the brain, equivalent to like how different pornography is from actual sex, right? It's like that's what donuts are to food, or drive-through is to food, right? It's just the brain never knows how to handle a flood of that magnitude. And what the brain does is it starts to thin out the dopamine receptors, make them less numerous, less responsive, because it keeps getting hit by this onslaught of dopamine that's too big. So it just adjusts the thermostat down. Yeah. Well, that's fine as long as you're going to keep going to the drive-through, right? But as soon as you try to eat healthy, now you feel itchy, you feel uncomfortable, you feel bleak. This is where people look me in the eye and they say, no sugar, no flour. I could never do that. And then I know that part of their brain has been affected by the addiction, because it doesn't feel bleak once you do it and that part of your brain is healed. So when you have dopamine downregulation on board, that causes cravings. It's the craving to get you back to a baseline of normalcy, just back to being able to function without feeling so terrible. So there's that. And then the final way is this weird kind of hunger that exists these days. I call it insatiable hunger. I don't know if you have this. I certainly did. Not everyone gets it, but some of your listeners might relate. It's this hunger where you've eaten a full dinner and now you're sitting on the couch watching TV and you feel like you need more food. You're stuffed, but you need some ice cream or you need a bag of chips or you need something. And it's like, where's that coming from, right? Maybe you eat the pint of ice cream and then you still need more food. And then you go, now you're going for the bag of chips, right? It's insatiable hunger. It's actually not satisfied by eating. You can keep eating even to the point of being grotesquely stuffed. And that is caused by leptin resistance. So leptin is the hormone that says you're done eating. You're full, you're satisfied. As a matter of fact, you feel like getting active because now you're going to go build a hut or kill a wildebeest or something with all of this fuel that you've got on board, right? And leptin is that it's like the world's best diet drug. And believe me, the pharmaceutical companies spent millions of dollars in 1994 when leptin was discovered, trying to put it into pills and get people skinny. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way because it's not that we don't have enough leptin. That's not the problem. It's that our brains can't see it. Leptin resistance. So the leptin is being blocked and the signal for fullness never comes. Ever. And what causes leptin resistance is high baseline insulin levels. So insulin levels at baseline have been rising since the 1970s. They're now probably twice as high as they should be in the general population. And so lots of people are experiencing this weird, insatiable hunger, this hunger that never goes away. Well, when you stop eating sugar and flour, that goes away. So in Bright Line Eating, we heal the brain. And, you know, when your brain is all hijacked like that, honestly, Jill, you can't stick to the kinds of diets you've been trying to do. It's like trying to hold your breath while you run upstairs. Your brain, not over the time course of a day, but over the time course of weeks and months, your brain will force you to go back to eating the foods that it thinks that it needs.
Interesting. Luckily I'm not insatiable. I that is not me. We vacation a lot, so I like to enjoy foods and it's more, I am in the category of end of week fatigue. Because I am like stalwart, like Monday through Friday. And then it's like I get home for the weekend and it's just like, let's go out to dinner. I don't want to cook. Like, you know, so that makes actually perfect sense to me. So anyways, I absolutely love what you're doing. I think that this was really great for our listeners. And I just want them to be able to find you and everything that you're doing. So why don't you tell our listeners what's the best way to find you at?
Yeah, totally. It's so easy. BrightLineEating.com. So I've been saying this the whole episode, Bright Line Eating. It's BRIGHTLINE, Bright Line Eating. Perfect. And at brightlineeating.com, you can take the quiz that Jill and I both have taken. I'm a 10, she's a 7. It goes from 1 to 10, and that just tells you how susceptible your brain is to the pull of those addictive foods. If you're, you know, in that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 range, you're probably gonna be more successful with an approach like Bright Line Eating than, you know, some other plan. So yeah. And there you can also just sign up for the Bright Line Eating membership. It's just, it's super affordable. And what you get is a tailored journey that takes you all the way from where you're at right now to have your bright body transformation, get all that excess weight off, feel great in your skin, regain authorship over the food you're putting in your mouth, and just solve this problem once and for all. Just solve it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And also check out her book, Bright Line Eating, The Science of Living Happy, Thin, and Free. I think your story is just so inspirational in what you're doing, and I really appreciate you. Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for joining us. You guys, that was another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Just remember, you're worthy. And if everything else is falling apart right now, that divorce diet might be just the thing for you to take your power back. And we're here to support you every week in helping you do just that. Remember, you're worthy. You are worthy of being happy and you're worthy of being the best version of yourself. So whatever way you need to do that, we are here to walk you through that step by step. Thanks again, Dr. Thompson. Until next time.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.